and welcome to another Sales Hacker webinar. Thank you all for taking the time out of your day to join us and learn from these thought leaders that we have here today. I've got three panelists that know what we're speaking to today inside and out. So today we have Max, Kristen, and Ryan. I'll get them to do a little bit of an intro shortly, but to all three of you, thank you all so much for taking the time of your day to bless us, and welcome to a Sales Hacker webinar.
Thanks, Mikey.
Good to be here. My pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Awesome. Well, I'm really excited, guys, to dive into it and learn from you three. But I do also want to just get a bit more background on each one of you so we can get a bit more acquainted with our audience. So why don't we start with Kristen. Kristen Myers, can you please give us a bit of background on yourself, who you are, where you're from, how you got to where you are today, so we can get a bit more acquainted?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's great to be here with everybody. I'm so honored that Sales Hacker asked me to be on the panel today. I am currently the head of sales operations at a company called OmniEngine. We're a small startup that's been around for just over 3 years, based out of Phoenix, Arizona. And I've been with the company for 2.5 years, running all of our entire sales ops work for the whole company. Prior to that, I would say my skill set was deeply rooted in the world of sales for about 10 years, from individual sales contributor roles to sales leadership, managing multiple sales teams, into sales strategy and innovation, before I got the itch to kind of move into sales ops. So I definitely have a good background in both sales and operations.
Fantastic. Well, perfect. So you're going to know everything across the whole board here today. So I'm really excited to hear.
I try.
Yeah. No, perfect. I love it. This is going to be great. I'm excited to hear what you can share with everybody and myself too. I'm really excited to learn from you guys. Okay. I'll pass it over to Max. Max, do you mind just giving us a bit of background on yourself, who you are, where you're from, and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much for the introduction and the invite to come here today. So my name is Max Littke. I'm an enterprise advocate at Atlassian, and I specifically focus on a product called Help. It's my role currently is a really fun role because we sort of operate in a venture arm of Atlassian, where if they are acquiring products or bringing new products to market, it's how are they going to go to market with these new products. And so technically I'm, I would say, an individual contributor with a little bit of the operations on the background and figuring stuff out, helping to optimize for the team. But before that, I've always actually been in SaaS since I graduated college. So a couple startups in Chicago and Madison. Spent the last 6 years at Zendesk, and then coming up on a year here at Atlassian.
Fantastic. Great. Well, I'm excited to hear what you have to say as well, especially on the enterprise things side of things too. And again, thank you, Help, for sponsoring this event. I'm really excited to dive into everything we're going to speak to. So last but not least, Ryan, can you please just give us a bit of an introduction on yourself, where you're from, how you got to where you are today, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. My name's Ryan Dempsey. I am a Salesforce administrator at a company called InBorder. I've been a Salesforce admin for going on 6 years now. 5 times certified. Most recently, I got my CPQ specialist certification, which was a fun one. I'm from Nacogdoches, Texas. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of Nacogdoches, Texas. It's also known as Naca Nowhere. But I've spent the last 6 years in Austin, Texas, which is where I'm located at now. I've been at InBorder since August of last year, so not even 6 months yet. InBorder is an experience-driven onboarding solution who are like well equipped for enabling companies for the remote onboarding world, but also just fixing like broken onboarding processes and automating some of the repetitive tasks. But yes, I tend to focus more on like solution design and deliver, but being an admin and having worked in a business systems analyst role, you have to know your way around operations, whether that be sales ops, marketing ops, SMOps, or DevOps. So super glad to be here. And yeah, I can't wait to hear what the other panelists have to say, because I know I'm going to learn a lot from them as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Ryan, for joining us. I know we've got multiple perspectives on this this topic, so hearing from all those different angles is going to be very interesting and a good approach here. So again, everybody, what we're speaking to today, the sales ops teams to closing deals and their secrets to closing deals faster. So let's dive into it. Let's get this going. So I want to start off just with a story, I guess you could say, from each of you. Okay. So, I know you guys have had some long careers and have probably tons of experience in multiple different situations, but because we're speaking more geared towards the operations and kind of support processes, I would love to hear a story of a time where you either hopped into a position and had to rework a very insufficient process, or something that was not right, that you had to kind of rework, how you overcame that to create the much more efficient process and how it actually benefit the company as a whole. So why don't I start off with Max? Do you have a little story for us to kind of just start off?
Yeah, I was thinking about this, and the biggest thing that stood out in my mind, where my previous role in company, and this was back when we were in an office, not in my lovely basement for the last couple of years, but where, as a rep, when the rep had a question, to get in contact with the deal desk team, it was number one, wait for office hours, and then number two, show up physically in office hours. And so, right, like I would see lines of reps, right, like so much wasted time just like queuing up for this, which sort of boggled my mind. And now, granted, there was definitely a ticket flow that you could get in, but you never really knew like when they were going to get to that. So you showed up to office hours and tried to get your ticket to the top of the line. It was a little bit of chaos back then. And so now, like one big thing that, again, when I made a recent job change, how I've seen and helped it change here is, as soon as I get a question from a customer or a rep that gets a question, it's now just immediately into a shared Slack channel where it can be answered by multiple reps or operational specialists. And then if it gets something, if it is more complicated than just like a simple, reply in a thread, you can easily, like just make a ticket off of this, and then like bigger eyes, or right, like you'll go through the escalation path for that. But that was like the biggest change that I've seen, where like it still boggles my mind thinking about the number of reps that they had in line instead of like actually talking to customers, just building up there. So yeah, that was the biggest thing, where like it was so inefficient that when I made the job switch, and then really saw how, like what you could do in Slack with like the different Slack tools and workflows and add-ons that you can put in there, just like how much more efficient it could be. I don't have like stats to say like, hey, from this company to this company, it took whatever, but like I could I could say it was much more efficient.
Totally. No, yeah. I get that. Right. That's fantastic. And, also reps too, just, there, some can be very, how do I put this lightly? Selfish. They want to get their stuff answered first. Right. So I can imagine the chaos when it was very siloed. Right. So, thanks for that, Max. I'll throw it over to Kristen. Do you have a little story for us?
Yes, I do. When you asked this, the thing that came to my mind is when I first joined OmniEngine, we were faced with a very low completion rate. So once our sales team sells deals, we have to go out and get the installation successfully completed for our sales team to earn their full commission on the deal. When I got here, our completion rate was 42%. It wasn't great. We weren't delivering really high quality deals. And so, of course, there was some things on the sales end that we needed to tweak, but we knew it was definitely an operational issue that we were facing to get these installations through to completion. And so we did several things, reworking all of our dashboards, reworking our partnerships with our installation partners. We segmented our installation team based on certain activities that they were doing. So there's a lot of things that we reworked, and about 9 months later, we were already up to a 78% completion rate. So 42% to 78% simply based on some operational efficiencies that we needed to find in the business to truly deliver for our sales reps, because that's how they were going to make money.
Awesome. Wow. What a jump. Almost double. That's
Yes.
that's very,
I'm so
very
proud of the team.
awesome. Well, congratulations. That's fantastic. Love to hear that. Great. Well, thank you, Kristen. Excited to hear more what you have to say as we move through the conversation. Ryan, do you have a little story for us that you can share?
Yeah, actually, here just a few months ago when I joined InBorder, InBorder's in scale up phase of their growth, and that often comes with a lot of just adding new tools. You gotta try to keep up and do what you can to enable SDRs, account execs, everybody across various tech stack needs. We didn't have a single channel by which even bugs could be reported for Salesforce. That's something I'd sort of taken for granted at like previous orgs, because they had a system in place for reporting bugs for other things. So that's when we actually, and this is going to sound like a plant actually, but that's actually when we stumbled across Help, which really brings the ticketing system straight into Slack. And because I use Jira to manage, epics, stories, bugs, and tasks. And the reason I do that is because, I have to work across, different teams, not just those that are in Salesforce on certain projects, like custom integration projects and stuff like that. So that process actually not only streamlined bug reporting, but for me, even prior to other ticketing forms we had used, this one was way easier for me because I can get notified right on my phone, and I can go straight into either Jira or into Salesforce, and I can fix it sometimes mobily. But another thing that it did was it brought to surface a lot of, because end users don't always know what's a Salesforce bug and maybe what's a bug, maybe originating out of Outreach or Gong or Conga Sign, or I could go through the whole tech stack. So because Salesforce being the center of gravity, I become sort of like the accidental admin for these other tools as well. So it actually brought a lot of exposure to some of the improvements that could be made in these other systems. So I think that story of just how now we've gone from they didn't know whether to Slack X, Y, or Jane or email them for reporting bugs, to now they know exactly how to create a ticket. They know exactly where it's going to go. They know exactly when it's been received, when it's in progress, and it's usually closed in the matter of minutes. And to add to that, a lot of feature requests started coming through. And this gave me the opportunity to start talking about governance and how this ticketing tool isn't yet ready for taking in feature requests, and how those sort of requests need to be like, pulled up through the flagpole into a center of excellence, so that I'm staying in scope, staying aligned with the business needs and what they're expecting of me to get done. So it's actually caused this conversation to start about governance and about how feature requests should be made. So now we're building out a center of excellence, and that whole mindset's changing across the whole org.
Sweet. Yeah, I love that. And I love the thought that you said there, where you can kind of show the process and how it's coming along, so everyone can be up to date and aware of, okay, when is this going to be complete, I guess you could say, right? Because there could be some sort of hidden factors that some people might not be able to see, right? So that's fantastic. Great. Well, thank you all for sharing that. I'm sure there's a ton of people on the line that have gone through their similar experiences, maybe even some nightmares and so on with the whole support process. So great. So moving on, I want to bring up another topic here, whereas, okay, like kind of like what Max said earlier, now that we're not in person at all, and people have to build out a completely digital process. Since 2020, I'm sure so many people were building out this this remote world support ticketing system. But now into 2021, as we get a bit more familiar with the process, and now moving into 2022, what were some of the bigger hurdles that your team dealt with when building this out, or overcoming any kind of speed bumps, inefficiencies, or so on like that in 2021? Kristen, I'll start with you.
There's a few thoughts that I have on this. So one of the big hurdles that we dealt with at the beginning of the year was running through our Salesforce architecture. The way that we had architected Salesforce at the very beginning of when OmniEngine was created wasn't necessarily conducive to how we were going to build it going forward. And so we had to go through a pretty big re-engineering process of our Salesforce architecture to be able to then use our dialer, which is 5.9, effectively, efficiently, fast. So that was a big project and a big undertaking that we did at the beginning of 2021. And obviously that plays into speed to lead. Anytime we can leverage technology, our sales team can get to these leads a lot faster. Another major area of focus for us in 2021 was also building out APIs. So I mentioned that we have a scheduling function. This scheduling function, it was manual. It was a Google Calendar across 23 MSAs, and we would have to manually go pick the date. From those dates, it was kind of a crapshoot if it would get to our installation partner, and then the installation partner may or may not show up at the installation on time because everything was manual, done through Excel files. So we went through a very large undertaking of building out APIs with 2 of our tech installation vendors to really help, again, that's the completion rate, so that the installation partners had the appropriate notes. They were showing up on time to these appointments as they were scheduled. But I would say that that has been a really big part of our sales tactic on getting these installations through to completion. There's several other ones, but I'll let the other panelists go. And then if there's additional questions, I'm happy to answer.
Cool. And I'm sure we'll get to it and dive into it a bit more as we talk through the details here. So thanks, Kristen. Well, I'll throw it over to Max. Max, what about you? Is there any what were your biggest hurdles for you and your team in 2021?
Yeah, I would say there are 2 for us. The first is Atlassian made a switch where they are calling it remote everywhere or team anywhere, where Atlassian switched to a digital, no footprint, like you could work from wherever you wanted to do so, which is great, allowed us to get talent anywhere and everywhere. But then when it comes to the biggest problem in my mind that I've seen is onboarding new reps and running them through different systems. Obviously tools like Zoom and Slack huddles can make things easier, but part of it is just right like that, again, that in person or not. So onboarding a team, making sure that they are comfortable with the process, the tech stack, etc. One thing that was super helpful is setting up like sort of private Slack channels with just like the sales team. So like they could have conversations and ask their dumb questions instead of out publicly. So that was a great way for like new reps to, just sort of get through the dumb phase, right? So that really helped. And also like even just searching within Slack, it's a pretty powerful tool. And then, right, like a new rep can find an older rep's answer and process and flow and follow that along. So that's sort of how it was a challenge, but how we sort of helped to solve that. Another thing was that help came into the Atlassian via acquisition. And so it was coming into like merging systems, picking what was going to come through or not, what contracts would stay and go. And, so that is still being resolved today. But it's, like, hey, are we going to continue to maintain a system if we're going to move or not? Or is Atlassian going to come to our systems because it worked so well? So just internal dialogue about like what systems and tools stay and go via an acquisition.
Awesome. Love that. And I think we'll dive a bit deeper into that exact point as we move through. But yeah, fantastic. I love it. Love it, Max. Ryan, I'll throw it over to you. What were some of the hurdles that you encountered, not at your previous company before you came over to Onboarder, but then also as you've even been Onboarder for the last 6 months?
Oh, well, I'll start with, the last 6 months, since that's fresher on my mind. Anytime you adopt a Salesforce instance that's 5 years old, it hadn't necessarily either evolved with the business needs or implemented properly in the first place. There's always a learning curve for the admin to understand current state, because there's just so many complexities there. And we didn't really have somebody. We had a couple people that were very helpful, but there were a lot of deeper complexities and deeper problems that didn't really present themselves through those conversations or through my audits, but they were actually exposed pretty quickly through the ticketing system because of how many bugs I got about the same types of things. For example, we rolled out CPQ within the last year. I'd not worked with CPQ before, and I don't know if any of the audience members work with CPQ or know anything about it, but it's pretty complex. And ours was only maybe half rolled out, but maybe twice as complicated as it needed to be. One of the issues that we kept facing was there was a price rule that tells the rep whether or not this quote requires approval. And even after approvers would approve it, it would trigger that notification again and again. It would just keep going back into that state. And I had no idea why, but through the ticketing system, and through, taking time to really delve off into like what is behind even triggering this notification, learning about price rules, and that this was caused by a price rule that kept getting fired on calculation, we were able to, quickly resolve it to where, because everybody knows approval will hold up a deal sometimes for a whole weekend.
Yeah.
And that you don't have that much time, you're not afforded that much time in sales, especially when competitors are fighting for business. So that's gone from, in some cases, 48 hours turnaround to now it doesn't even happen. And I think that is probably one of the biggest hurdles I've faced over the last couple of months, just figuring out that thing existed, what was causing it, and then getting it fixed.
Cool. Love it. And I know I can relate to what you just said there, is that there isn't much time in sales, right? We want everything back to our prospect as quickly as possible. So by minimizing that delay, it can do wonders, right? It can definitely do wonders, especially if you get the information in front of them before your competitors, right? So love that. Sounds great, Ryan. Okay, now let's move into automation. Okay, so the world of automation, now everything, especially now that we're again back to not in person and stuff, and we can't go directly to our support team and ask them the questions or so on. Everything has to go through some sort of process, right? But automation is starting to kind of take over and eliminate a lot of mundane admin processes. So I would love to hear a bit more from each of you on some tips for using automation in that process, in the support process, not only to help get tickets through and answers back to your teams quicker, but how you've seen it help move deals for your teams through the pipeline faster. Ryan, do you want to start off there?
Yeah. So I'll start with Halp and Jira. Okay. I do not work for Halp. I am just a big fan of Halp. And what Jira, I'm also a big fan of Jira. In the support process, what I was able to do was create a rule inside Jira to where if I get a bug from help, it goes straight into my sprint. That way, not only can I see it immediately, but I could also report on this to stakeholders, show like this is, you know, this is scope, and this is the room I've given myself to like solve for bugs. And this is how much scope creep there is. So not only does it help in, you know, automating that flow of bugs straight to my sprint, but it also helps me to present to stakeholders that this is how much time bugs are taking away from scope. In Salesforce, I've leveraged a couple just simple custom buttons that dynamically autofill opportunity and quote info on Create. What they did have prior to these buttons was a long form of like, I think it was like 130 fields that they have to scroll through, only to fill out like 6 of them. Those 6 could have been just auto-filled. So we've saved sales reps a lot of time just in getting an op started so that they can, you know, get that on the reporting and in the forecast, and get discovery calls and demo calls set up and ran. I'm also using a combination of custom lightning flow and standard Salesforce CPQ functionality to streamline the contracting, amendments, and renewals process, which hasn't been rolled out. That was the part I talked about where CPQ had only been half rolled out. We didn't roll out the contract renewals or amendments functionality of CPQ for some reason. And so that's really taking a lot of time from reps to manually create renewal opportunities, because automating those with standard functionality is a little bit more tricky when you're trying to determine when do you insert a new renewal op and when do you upsert and just keep adding to an existing renewal op. And that's what CPQ does great. And lean data routing. We like lean data because it really saves time from like getting leads out of a queue and 2 people to engage with reps or to engage with prospects. So lean data and outreach sequences, routing and outreach sequences have definitely saved a lot of time for us in the sales process.
Fantastic. Oh, I love it. How, just a fast follow on that, how is the automation, how much time has it broken off of, say, a turnaround time for, you know, any kind of support tickets or anything like that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I'll have to get back to you because I want to run reports on like before and after, because we have like specific dates I can go back to, and we can, you know, measure like quote to close or create to close times. And that data, those metrics are pretty, I think, important if you're not using them, just to determine how long is it taking to get a deal signed or even a deal lost, like trying to get to the nuts and bolts of like, are you interested? Are we going to move forward? And if not, why not? So we can know, so we can have that data to inform future, you know, sales process and strategy.
Totally. Yeah, no, exactly. And like, not only for even, that's great for internal processes to build it out faster, but also even for the reps on the external face, where now you can manage some sort of expectations where this is when I'll have everything back to you. I'll have everything ready to go. So, you know, they're not just waiting around for info, right? So no, that's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Max, I would love to hear, you know, your thoughts on automation and kind of what you've put in place to, you know, help build that process and then help turn deals around quicker.
Yeah. So the help sales process is I don't know if it's so unique, but like how we are set up is that we are a high velocity selling team. So there's, I would say, low ACV, but this high volume of it just sort of makes up some of the numbers where, you know, sort of the quote I like is, you know, shavings make a pile. And that's how like a lot of reps get to their number. And so what we try to do is we just try to like use automation to the max to strip everything out where the rep, like we want the rep talking to the prospect and customer as much as possible. So for example, like if you're to go to the help website and try us out, like the process, the automation starts immediately where you sign up for a trial that sends a webhook to Workato, which will then kick off a variety of other workflows where like an opportunity automatically gets created, whether, you have talked to a sales rep or not. And so our sales reps actually, are working like 300-400 opportunities at a time, because these are all just trials that come in after a certain amount of time, right? If they don't convert, the opportunity closes out. And again, this is all behind the scenes in automation. But what we want to do, right, like is to bubble up the customers who are actively using the trial, or if a well-known brand, Fortune 100, 500 rolls in, walks through the door. We want to get that rep in front of them. Some of the stuff that we have seen is that if they talk to a human instead of just buying the product on their own, they're 2 times more likely to close. And then when they do buy, they bring in 5 times the revenue versus if they, again, just bought on their own. And this is because, right, like a sales rep can understand pain points and like talk about more teams or how to use the product better. So they buy larger on that first initial buy. And then also on the other side is that when it comes to the end of the customer lifecycle with the churn, basically like 95% of the churn that we see of help, these were customers that were completely self-service, who never talked to a rep, or maybe like didn't implement it correctly or didn't understand like what the product exactly was. So again, like the whole goal here is to strip away all the unnecessary tasks for the rep to do, automatically create opportunities, close out opportunities. Like the automation even will forecast what the deal is at, where the rep doesn't have to go in and, change numbers here and there. Again, all automation is pretty slick, where again, right, like the goal here is to spend as much time talking to customers or prospects as possible.
Yeah, no, totally. And that's, I love what you were saying there, because we just did a research survey, and we got some kind of astonishing stats come back. It was something like an average sales rep, about 20 hours of their week is spent on admin stuff, right? Where it's like, we're hired to get on the phone, showcase our relationship building skills and so on, rather than typing stuff in and filling in boxes and keywords and so on, right? So automating that is, such a main goal, because, let's get them doing what they're good at, right? And that's being on the phone and talking about what it is that they're trying to help their customer with, right? Mm-hmm. And again, too, what you mentioned on, getting them on the phone, they're much more likely to buy. It's like, you're the expert. They want to hear from your recommendations, right? They want to understand what you think and how you truly think that your product can help my situation, right? Yep. So, and by doing that, by just sending an email or sending out some collateral, there's no way of actually understanding exactly, is this person real or not, right? So, I always try to get on the phone as much as possible. I think it's much better too. Great, thanks, Max. I love that. Those some great insights there. Kristen, I would love to hear your thoughts on automation.
Yeah. So Max, it sounds like you guys have ideal state scenario, and I would love to get Omni there. Like, it sounds awesome. But we definitely work on automating a lot of our processes here too, that take a lot of time away from our selling team. There's 2 really big ones that we worked on automating over the last 18 months or so. The first is our contract. So initially we partner with Amazon and we do sales on behalf of Amazon. And Amazon's legal team felt very, very strongly that they wanted ink, whether it's, DocuSign or Adobe Ink on a contract. And we believed that there was a better way to go about getting this contract signed off on. And so what we did is created this automated process where an email goes out to a prospect who's interested in purchasing from us. And this prospect will click on the link, and it basically opens up all of the contract language in a terms and conditions type file or web page rather. And versus signing something, which seems a lot more serious, we had them just click a box to accept terms and conditions and put their appropriate address in there. And we presented this idea to our partners at Amazon, and they were like, wow, this is really innovative and it's going to save a lot of time. We love it. Let's move forward. And it has shaved off so much time from our sales reps having to go hunt down where these DocuSign signature contracts are at. And it's allowed the sales team to turn over deals a lot faster because they're not having to go, hey, did you sign the DocuSign? Who do I have to send it to? Who has approval? It was kind of messy. And so we put the power really back onto the customer to say, yeah, just click the box and you're going to sign off on these terms and conditions. So a creative way to a different approach for sure.
Yeah, love it. That's fantastic. Cool. I want to just ask one question to Max. Being the enterprise advocate, how has automation helped on those enterprise tickets, right? There's so much information that goes into, some of those deals. It could take years to, end up closing one of those, multiple different people involved in that one deal. How have you seen automation really help that process?
Yeah, something that just comes to mind is when these large customers roll through the door, the visibility that a tool like Slack, and again, like all the different add-ons that you can bring in, like you can bring in the right people immediately and get them caught up. So like you don't have to like send them through some different ticket portal or something like that, right? Like the whole thing, I mean, even if it is logged in like a help ticket in Slack, right? Like you can see and get, developers, legal, operations all caught up like instantly. So, right, like you don't have to re-explain the problem 10 times over. And so, right, like when a language on a contract needs to be changed, or there is a feature that needs to be built out for signature to happen, something like that, right? It's incredibly easy. Like, again, I don't have any stats to say like how much time has been shaved off from previous companies, but like it's fun where when you are a super nimble team that I think just sort of has always been a digital first team, or like has always lived within sort of the same tool, that it has just moved the process along at a rate I've never seen before. My 5 different employers beforehand, it's just, it just moves it along.
Yeah, totally. And then, like the perfect way to say it. And then someone can just, like you mentioned, can step in and know where to go from there, right? Because I remember there's been some times in my past where I would take over an account and I'd be like, okay, where am I? And what's going on?
Yeah, like we even do items of like after your call notes with any customer or prospect, you just drop them into the shared channels of either like our customer success or our prospecting channel, where again, other reps can learn for onboarding. Managers or product managers can jump in with product questions and answers right there, where there's no time wasted. Like you just put your notes in, answers happen, and then you step into a new book of business. You can just do a quick, simple search where you're chatting all day and find the background on that customer or prospect.
The one source of truth, all right.
Yeah.
There, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
love it. That's fantastic. Cool. This is great. Okay, let's move on. We only have a handful of minutes left, but what I want to now talk to, because when we're now implementing all these new processes, new tools that we're using to build out this, how have you seen at your organization or in previous organizations, internal stakeholders, and how do you prep your teams, like you have mentioned somewhat throughout the conversation, when rolling out these new tools, and and how have you seen your internal stakeholders adopt those new tools internally? Kristen, I'll start with you there.
Yeah, I would say it's been a learning process to learn how to get people to adopt new tools. There are some tools that we've implemented that the team is so excited about, and it's mass adoption right away. And then there's other tools where the buy-in takes a little bit longer. And so that's definitely been something on the sales ops team that we've gotten used to, of how we're managing like change management and rolling out new technology. I would say, I can give you kind of a clear example, Mikey. We went to roll out this gamification software. And at first we thought that on sales ops, we thought that the sales team would be really excited about this. It's a new cool tool that tracks their sales. It adds a fun aspect to it. The adoption wasn't nearly as quick as we thought it would be. And so we went back to the drawing board, learned some lessons there. So the next tool that we rolled out, we migrated from Slack over to Teams. And we thought that it would be like ripping a Band-Aid off to force people to go to Teams. And we didn't think people would like it very much. But the adoption of Teams was so rapid and so swift across our organization that I think our lessons that we learned in rolling out the gamification tool were really helpful when we went to implement a tool like Teams. So, I would say there's been some lessons for us, and it's been hit or miss, but we're always learning and we're always getting better.
Perfect. And that's the beauty, always learning, always getting better. That's what we want to do, right? I just got a question from Jonathan in the audience here. I'll start with you, Kristen, just because you just went there. Have you seen user buy-in be a blocker when bringing on a new tool?
Not really. So the way that it works on the way that we purchase tech is the business will kind of tell us what they are looking for, features that they're desiring, and we'll kind of collect requirements. And then we'll go out and search for these tools. So usually the business is kind of telling us what they need. So it hasn't been that they're a blocker necessarily, but where we have seen the team kind of push back is with that adoption. So maybe it was a couple of teams and we're trying to adopt it org-wide. That's where we've seen not necessarily pushback, but just really low adoption. And we have to get them bought in on why it's a great tool for them. And that approach is always, working side by side with them, helping them understand, why the tool is so great, what their hesitations and concerns are. But we haven't made a buying decision when it hasn't been in partnership with our sales org to tell us, hey, we really think we can use a tool like this.
Got it. Yeah, because there's so many people that could just be like, another tool. I don't have what I got to learn something new. And change for some people can be challenging, right? So
very much so. People are scared to change. Yeah,
exactly. I get that. Ryan, I'll throw it over to you. How have you seen adoption internally of these, new tools that you implement, especially, like you mentioned, implementing new stuff at, because you got Help and Jira coming in as well. How have you seen the internal stakeholders respond to new rollout of tools?
Yeah, so I'm coming in at a kind of an interesting time where I'm coming in just post implementation of most of the tools, but then pre-implementation of so far just Help and so far just a couple new sales processes. I started my Salesforce career as an implementation specialist, and this seems to be consistent across everywhere I've worked. Anything that's ever rolled out new is when there's a specific requirement coming in from a stakeholder where they know exactly what they want to get from the tool, and they agree that their role in adoption is going to be them on the ground working with and advocating for the requirement that led to the tool in the first place. So it's when tools are just an idea of someone, they throw money at it and they just throw it in the tech stack and they say, hey, we have this new thing. There's no, answering this question that you have to answer, I think, for every process and tool is like, what's in it for me to the people you're expecting to adopt it? And then what's the support process for if I am having a bad experience with this? If this is sucking for me and I don't have a place to go to get training or help, then I'm not gonna adopt it either, probably. I wouldn't want to. I mean, even folks that Salesforce users who weren't asked or trained on the move from Classic to Lightning interface,
Yeah,
they're still switching back to Classic and using Classic because there hasn't been this partnership on like, this is what a finished product looks like. This is what we expect the MVP to look like. This is how we're going to roll it out. Communication plans, training documents, training sessions, and then, feedback. Like, we're going to constantly check in with you and get feedback from you and check in on you. So with help, for example, versus something like CPQ, it's been easy ever since demonstrating the what's in it for me. They get responses immediately, and we're able to communicate, in these threads with images in real time, to where bugs are fixed most of the time within minutes. And so they believe in the tool. That's the way to get a bug fixed now versus before, sending one person a Gmail, another person a text, another person a letter in the mail, and then another person a Slack message. Now they believe in that. So I think for a tool like Help, the adoption's been great. For tools like CPQ, not as great, because perhaps the training and support initially wasn't there, or maybe the question of what's in it for me hasn't constantly been answered since it's been rolled out.
Mm-hmm. And I think I totally agree with that, and the importance of having the post sale implementation process of adoption, right? With your team, having the hands-on, this is how you got to use it. This is going to be the best practices, and this is how you're going to succeed.
Yeah, and it can't be just the admin or just one sales ops person that plays that role. Like, if it's got to be determined that this is in alignment with business objectives. This means that more than one person wants it. That means that more than one people have to sort of help push out adoption, just like they're pushing in requirements. You got to help us push out adoption, because I'm not going to be able to go out and constantly be inside these meetings checking with everybody. I need your help. That's some unsolicited advice. Just when I've seen that happen, I've seen high adoption.
Got it. Love it. Thanks, Ryan. Max, just to get your quick thoughts on adoption and internally and so on.
Yeah, well, I mean, so I work on both sides of it, of getting new tools, but then also working with customers looking at help as well. And so two things I think that make it easy, and sort of building off of Ryan's point. The first, I mean, what makes help, or even just like software in general today, helpful if you are in the software realm, is a free trial, right? Like the customer can try, it makes it visible within the organization. People can see how it's immediately impacting them. Which again has been super helpful for help itself. And then also sort of the way that it's visible. Help, for example, I mean, like you add a ticket emoji within Slack and then it kicks off a workflow. So something so simple, like elegantly beautiful and simple like that is really like, people can just be like, oh, if I need help, I just add this emoji. Wow, that was easy, right? And so when you make it easy for the end user like that, that's where just the rollout happens and user adoption just goes up.
Totally. Yeah, I love that. Fantastic. Well, okay. Before I let the three of you guys go, I've learned so much. So thank you all for this insight, and I'm sure the audience has as well. I want to get from each of you just some last minute, any other tips, maybe some your secret sauce personally, that you can share that has really helped, build out a process for success for your reps, and has helped, internally, and even in the past, like Kristen, when you said you've been an IC in your past life, that has helped you move deals quicker. So some last minute tips that you can share would be great. And I'll start with you, Kristen.
Oh, yeah, there's a couple of things lessons I've learned along the way. The first would be, when you're in a sales ops role, we are at service to everybody else across the organization. And so communication and collaboration is key to the point that I like over communicating stuff to people, like, hey, just status update on this. And I do it in multiple different ways, whether I see them, I'm in the office part-time, whether it's via Teams, whether it's via email, shooting them a text. That's a lesson that I've definitely learned, especially as I've stepped into sales ops. The second thing is, like, fearlessly ask for tools if things aren't working. Like, speak up, be loud about it. You're not the squeaky wheel. We want to fix it. We don't know to fix it if we don't know that it's broken. So please speak up. And the third thing I would say that's a really best practice in sales ops that we've adopted is being able to streamline our tech prioritization process, because there's high impact stuff that may be very quick to implement that's going to pay off in a big way for our sales team. So those are my tips.
Beautiful. And I love what you said at the start there. Over communicate. I love to know what's going on. So I feel like we would vibe very well on that aspect. Ryan, what about you? Do you have any last minute tips that can help this the whole support and ticketing process?
Yeah, I mean, I just think in order to avoid a whole backlog of bugs, I think it's critical that leadership involve themselves with the performance and governance of business systems. This can't be just an admin thing. They have to partner with, and this kind of goes into this concept I've been growing very fond of over the last year. This whole idea of a center of excellence, where the requirements are being driven from leadership. They're very specific. Those that are rolling out things know exactly what a successful product is to internal customers, and the whole requirements gathering, design, solution, ship, support, and repeat process can actually mean something. So yeah, definitely don't get into this. I think it's an easy trap to fall into, and I just came from an org that had so much tech debt by doing this that they could not find their way out. And that is just throwing tools at problems and money at tools that cause more problems, and then throwing more tools at the problems. You need, thought out rollouts of even the simplest tool, so that it doesn't just cause more problems for you. If it's not solving problems for you, then it's probably causing problems for you. There's no really any middle ground, I've found. Don't subject your admins to the wild west of feature requests. If admins just took every request from every intern and every friend of an intern, then system, which is what I did when I started, just because it was so fun to do stuff. It was so fun just to add to solve problems for anybody. And then I realized that these aren't in alignment with the business, and they actually are actually causing a lot of clutter and in a lot of cases bad data modeling. So definitely get this word governance built into how you roll things out, and give your reps a single process and channel to report bugs and submit tasks, because they're going to want to feel supported. Every time you roll something out, there's going to be more support. It's like a direct correlation with every new rollout of something. I feel like there's this ramp up of support needed. So make it easy for them, so that they know exactly where to go and they feel like they believe in that process. That's my tips.
Perfect. I love that. Fantastic. And Max, before we end here, just your quick thoughts.
Yeah. If you are building a rocket ship to go to outer space, the whole rocket doesn't go, right? Strip it down, you drop stuff off in stages. And so what your end goal here, or what I see a lot is, right, like, have your people who are trained, paid to talk to customers, to close deals. Let them go out and do that. Strip down everything where they don't need to, update a bajillion fields, everything that Ryan and Kristen has been saying. If you got to go to outer space, you got to drop some weight somewhere.
Totally. I love it. Fantastic, you three. Well, I know we're at the top of the hour here. That's our time. Thank you all so much for spending the hour with us today and blessing us with your knowledge and experience and expertise. And everybody that stayed on, thank you for joining us.